I'm very pleased and honored to have with me Gregory Vallianatos. He's a journalist, political activist, and LGBTQI advocate.
It's a great pleasure, and I think it's a huge privilege to speak about the power of the people. Actually, the power of the individuals.
On your first understanding of your sexual orientation, what was the situation? How old were you, and how that happened to you? You were also HIV positive.
Yeah.
If you could tell us when was that, and what was your reaction? How did you learn, and how was also the family and the society?
I knew it already in about 87, and that was, of course, a different period on Earth. People would know that once you contract AIDS, you die in a couple of years.
Is the day that the same-sex marriage was legalized in Greece, and I see you kissing. Is someone born homosexual, or they become one by being exposed to ideologies and contents? Hello everyone, welcome to the Untold podcast. I'm very pleased and honored to have with me Gregory Vallianatos. He's a journalist, political activist, and LGBTQI advocate. Gregory has been at the forefront of LGBTQI advocacy for decades. In 2013, he brought Greece in front of the European Court of Human Rights regarding the civil unions, which allow the same-sex marriage to live together legally, and he won the case. In this podcast, we will delve into Gregory's personal journey, and we will hear his challenges as a gay man in Greece. And of course, we will discuss his fight for LGBTQ rights in Greece. Gregory, thank you so much for your time, for being here.
It's a great pleasure, and I think it's a huge privilege to speak about the power of the people. Actually, the power of the individuals, because we do have power. I mean, we have the example. I can give you 3 examples.
Yes.
The one is the one you just addressed. The other one is the story of LGBTQI plus rights. It took us almost 50 years, but now we can speak of the story of a revolution. And the other one is HIV. It is 40 years for that, a little bit less. But it is now under control, the fact that HIV-positive people live in a dignity, awaiting for the way out, meaning either something more permanent or a solution, but with dignity.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much again for being here. I'm very pleased to have you. I have prepared many questions, and I really hope that time allows us to I could ask you all these questions, but let's start off with your personal journey. If you could please tell us, where were you born, where did you grow up, and where did you go to school?
I was born very close to here. We are around the Acropolis of Athens, in the old part of it. We were 2 brothers and 2 sisters. And we've been and raised in Greece. I started traveling around in the age of 17, 18. I traveled to Romania. Part of our family were migrating from Cephalonia Island. This is the origins. And then I started traveling for studies. I went to France, the States, and England. And then I came back. I'm always traveling. I think if you travel early, you learn that some parts of you are somewhere else. And it was always the inspiration and then the necessity of me being prepared for the campaigns and the struggles we were supposed to do. I think that me traveling around is part of my understanding of the world. One should face the other truths so that one understands how relevant his or her truth is. We become more modest, more open, and more knowledgeable. And it is a wise saying that if knowledge is a circle, the more you know, the more the points touching the unknown become more.
I see.
So it's at the same time both. So one should be modest and persistent.
I would like to, if you could explain us that what were the circumstances, or if you could elaborate on on your first understanding of your sexual orientation.
Okay.
What was the situation? How old were you, and how that happened to you, and how was your own reaction about this?
We had a very interesting discussion earlier on how many sexes there are in the world, in nature. And to begin with, let's take another point. Homosexuality, LGBTQ+, is visible in nature. Unless you're a fool, you know that animals do likewise. And of course, the sexual conduct of everyone is unique. My understanding of my homosexuality was, I think, aesthetic. I was delighted by men's image. I didn't have a bad memories of bully or something. With myself, it wasn't the case. And I was not aware of something like this at school when I was very young. And then I was an athlete myself. I'm a gymnast too. Gymnastics, and that is a very erotic environment for myself. You know, Greece is a country that sex in general was something that was celebrated in full light in the antiquity. And the proof of that is the amazing series of statues, of representation or paintings of the nude body, which was out in the air. Now, obviously, my early youth was under a very authoritarian regime in this country, because between 67 and 74, we had a military dictatorship, which was very conservative, very pro-church, very nationalistic, very idealistic, very upfront, moralistic, or the listic possible. And it was then that the first theories of rejection and racism were apparent to me. It was a condemnation of any other sexual activity. I think that not all families speak out about these issues. My family was not the one that would interrogate me or would blame me for something. They knew something was different, but I wasn't the one to say, I'm sorry, this happens, or to do an outing, what we normally do as outing. I took it for granted that they should be respected. And in fact, it was only when at a later stage I was coming with my friends in the house or during holidays that people realized that I'm with men and they would ask me. I was not the one to apologize for this. Well, this can be exceptional, but that was the case. And in fact, the first time that I went on television, which was in December '85, it was on AIDS. It was to explain why gay people were responsible for the spread of AIDS, which is not true, of course, but that was the reason, because otherwise I don't think that gays would have an image out there. It was with the excuse of HIV. So my personal experience was, I'm living my life, I like what I'm feeling, and I want to make sure that everybody feeling the same or likewise should be able to express themselves and live this nice life.
That's very nice, and it's amazing that you managed to say that was the reality, that you accepted and you expected other people to respect what you wanted. That's very powerful. You mentioned about AIDS, and from my understanding, you were also HIV positive.
Yeah.
If you could tell us when was that, and what was your reaction? How did you learn, and how was also the family and the society?
Yeah.
How do they perceive you, or in general, how do they perceive?
Well, let's say that the worst thing about HIV infection and the people living with AIDS is stigma. And stigma is an ugly thing, and it applies to all racist categories, all people who have been accused for something that they are. They don't work for it, they haven't opted for it, sometimes they cannot change, there's no reason to change.
Yes.
But there is a misunderstanding, and there's a fear of the unknown, the fear that I'm in danger of somehow, which is not true. Now,
about you personally, when did you learn
yes,
that?
well, I knew it already in about 87, and that was, of course, a different period on Earth. People would know that once you contract AIDS, you die in a couple of years. And you die in an ugly way, because you lose your weight, you faint, you dismantle yourself, and it is painful, it is isolation, it is condemnation, it is accusation, it is self-retiring, it is negation of your friends, of course, of your beloved ones. It was a very, very difficult situation. I used to say we have a daily contract with life. There was a very toxic substances, AZT. It took it was a very difficult situation, because you were supposed to take have a dozen pills. Some you should be after meals, some before meals, some should be kept in fridge. Some, it was all sorts of difficult, and with reactions, with pains and with headaches and all that. That has changed. It dramatically changed in 1996 when this combination of drugs was discovered, and then there is a constant evolution of drugs. Now, people have nothing to do with it. Unfortunately, there is a lot of people who are out of drugs nowadays. Of course, the notion that of the first group of people who were accused, which was the black people, the people of Haiti Island, air hostesses, truck drivers, I don't know who else, and of course LGBT people, mainly gay men. Nowadays we know that if it is 35 million people that have been live with AIDS, there is about 3 or 4 or 5 LGBT, and the rest is all the rest. And it's unfortunate that the drugs are not available anywhere. It is a goal of the United Nations, of World Health Organization, to achieve these numbers.
I see.
In this country, there is a treatment. Of course, there is exceptions, but people are treated by the state with dignity.
And I suppose that you went through treatment. How do you feel now?
Oh, I'm fine.
Yes, that's very good.
It is as if nothing happens. And there is all sorts of health problems with other people. I'm fine.
Amazing. I'm very glad. I'm very glad to hear that. I ask this question from all of my guests, that I know that you have gone through a lot in your life and personal journey, and also with the work that you do over the decades, over the years. What has been the worst memory or experience that you have? Something that still it reminds you for the fight that you have, or something that still haunts you? That you have
unfortunately, it is very evident. It is 1, 2, or 3 generations of my friends that died. It was very lonely, because you knew. I mean, you would go out. You'd go out on the sea. You know how the beaches here, people are swim. You know each other, and they were fainting, and they were less and less. They were slim, they were miserable, and they were dying. The other day there was a discussion on, there is FRA, the Fundamental Rights Agency of the European Union, is conducting surveys every 10 years, and there was this issue of having 50 plus people, age above, to be able to respond and see how they live. And I want to explain to them that, I mean, one precondition to take part in this survey is that you state that you are LGBT.
Mm-hmm.
It's automatic. By stating, you fill the blanks. So I was explaining to them that people who have been born around the 60s and stuff, in order to be able to be 50s and above, are not there. They are much less than what was expecting LGBT people because of HIV. Now, this was very heavy because it was people that were fighting, the people who were loving, the people who wanted to live, and
Did you lose any close friend yourself?
plenty. Partners, friends. It was tough. It was the worst.
Yeah, I can only imagine that.
And see, the thing is that it's not only that. I mean, they were considered contagious.
Mm-hmm.
They were put in black plastic bags. They were denied normal burial, and they were cemented. So it was very heavy. I mean, people, even the relatives, could not find the courage of attending these ceremonies. It was lonely. It was dark.
Wow.
But it's over.
Yeah, this is very heavy, and I didn't know about this fact that they would cement people, or they wouldn't even allow them
because
to be.
of the fear of
Yes.
contamination.
What moment in your life led you to be the person that you are now, being at forefront of human rights, advocating for human rights, LGBTQ? What was that moment, and when was that?
I'm not sure what was a moment. Definitely what is apparent, what is very evident, is back in 40 years when I decided to be the spokesperson, a spokesperson of LGBT in a country that doesn't like these things, that it is after the people, is difficult. But I think that I was looking around. I was thinking, okay, LGBT people. Some are suffering much more than others. So I was thinking that it is my obligation to be able to be the voice of the ones who could not speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I took this example, this very pragmatic example of speaking out as of 93 for all categories of other minorities. We are in a country that minorities have problems, but I think that it was then. It was after school, during the studies, looking the difference between people who could enjoy life being whatever, gay, seropositive, everything, and the others that couldn't. And this injustice. It was an injustice that I could afford speaking out. As simple as that.
Was it dangerous to do that?
Yes.
Is it still dangerous?
Well, activists are chased. If people are chasing you because you speak up, you should speak up more. That is the way of bewildering their ill will to put you down. I think that people at the end of the day are more afraid that you are afraid because they cannot afford a clear voice with arguments. No, arguments is something that you can learn or be good or not, but I think that a reaction to this sort of chasing is more reaction.
At this part of the interview, if you could give us a brief history of the LGBTQI situation in Greece, from any moment of history that you would like to start. It would be good to have a contrast between the past before we start talking about the current situation.
I think that anyone who would like to see the morality or sex affairs of a culture or of a country, one should look at art. However old or new, and you can see what is the representation of sex in art in Greece, even for tourists. I don't go into details, but it is everything out. So Greeks were homosexuals, but definitely Greeks were sexual, which means that they were celebrating sex in full sunlight and moon. But the tradition of this country, the statues around you, the poetry, Iliad, Homer, are full of gay and lesbian and straight and whatever. What we call nowadays intersex, then it was called hermaphroditos, which is the celebration of two deities, Hermes and Aphrodite. So they were celebrated. I know that this notion is vivid sometimes in India. I mean, strange people are considered as deities, or people make a lot of money too. But to make a long story short, this is a country that the representation in art is full sexual activity in light. So, of course, after this period of time, with Christianity, things change, become more sober and dark and serious and ethic in a different way. And it is only in 1950 that homosexuality is decriminalized in this country. Now, from then onwards, there is a progress in poetry, literature, some art, very slowly as far as law is concerned. Discrimination, racism, this is very late notions and understandings in this country. Now, after the dictatorship, which is after 74, there was a project of law that would criminalize people seeking for sex outside, say prostitution or even flirting. Now there was a huge outcry because it was a project of law formulated by the dictatorship, and it was not allowed to pass. And there was a huge discussion on what happened. I think about May 68, I told you already, and this played a certain role in the general discussion. Mind you, politically, those years was a huge rise of the left, of a different left than the Soviet left, the standard East world in Europe. So there was an open discussion on sex. Now, one should see in the Greek case the role of the Greek Orthodox Church. It is a conservative church, a church that states that sex is allowed, if you wish, only for married people, for religiously married people. Now, having said religiously, any form of legal couple is religious in this country up until 1982, with the socialists that changed the civil law. Now, that year there was a civil marriage for everyone, and the lawmakers made an effort to take out the word bride, bridegroom, man, woman, and it was only the future to be married or persons. And explicitly, my law teachers were telling me that we did it explicitly because when time comes, and this is the question and the joke, you will be able to get married with this existing law. And it is only because a conservative interpretation of that law stated that Modestinos, who is a Roman lawyer or whatever, lawmaker, was stating that marriage is the union of a man and a woman. Now, for some reason, the Supreme Court decided to go with the law with this explanation, which means that the civil marriage that we attempted back in 2008 was null and void with different categories of courts, the Supreme Court. And now we are in the European Court of Human Rights, but with the new law, it is possible. So I don't think that it will stand with the European Court. However, we go to this other, I'm sure that is one of the questions, my case, the
Yes,
case
2020.
Vallianatos and Milonas, etc., versus Greece. Now, it's an interesting story because, you see, for activists, it is difficult not to find a couple that would like to get married, but you'd like a couple who would like to get married publicity. Because, one thing is to live together and be legal. The other one is that everybody should know that you are the ones, it's your struggle, and you have to answer all sorts of questions, which is difficult because, people maybe they want to get married, but they don't want to be famous for that. Of course, it went under the normal press officer who was looking for somebody else. It was an activist couple who weren't together, but we were the ones who could afford living with everybody knowing that we would go about that. Now, why was that? Around, if I may go on with history, around the year 2000, the European Union said that, okay, marriage is arranged in every country in the way they like, but we introduce a certain legal framework for couples to be legal. We don't name it marriage, you name it as you wish. So different countries named it in a different way. Greece was late in abiding with this law, and at the end of the time, because when you don't abide with the time, they take you to the Hague court case, the European Union itself. We asked the government to reconsider, telling them that we do two things. One, we go to the European Court. Two, we do a civil marriage with the law that we believe it is for everyone.
Everyone, yes.
So,
what was the response?
So, well, the response was that no, you don't do either nor. Of course, with the European Court of Human Rights, they couldn't stop us. It took long years, 13, 13, and we were not at all sure that it would go to be examined. It would be rejected. Not only wasn't rejected, but we announced that it's going to be judged in the grand jury, in the big hall with the lot of judges. I think they consider that when something is emblematic, it sets example. Of course, when we won, the repercussions were obvious in many countries because this is then the tradition of the court, and countries should abide. It was a great pleasure, and I think that it helped in opening the discussion for plain equality, which took us from 13. In 2015, the left government set up the new law with this, not with adoption, not dealing with the sexual identity and the change of the sex in the identity, but it came later. And it was, henceforth, it was a struggle progressively. Let's have more and more, and let's have sex education, let's have equality. And then there was, 3 years ago, there was a survey, and the Conservative Prime Minister asked for, say, a study on equality, on everything, LGBT equality, and they started little by little in abiding with all that. I think that the new law, a couple of months, is the end of the story of the legal provisions. Now we should be able to add certain things having to do with the parenthood. I mean, two people now, they have to adopt the kids of the other. This should be automatic. And there is some problems with the artificial insemination. as we say. They helped surrogacy. I mean, women and lesbian couples can decide. Straight gay couples, two men, cannot decide for surrogacy. And there is an interim phase where whatever happens abroad can be valid in the country, and somehow they should stop with surrogacy. I don't think it will stand, but I think that we are still alive and kicking, and now there is a very large front of organizations that struggle, very specific, very of their own. You know, it is always the first state is that somebody else is speaking about the friends. We know of some people who are gay and we support them. Amnesty International, Médecins du Monde, you know, all these people who are good and very useful. And then the time comes that drug users have their own organization, sex workers have their own organization, you know, migrants have their own, refugees have their own, Macedonians have their own, anything. This is the state now. And we have a lot of things to do up until there is equality for all of them too. I mean, the climate in the European Union is there, the European legal framework is there, that's what the European Court of Human Rights is judging upon, but national laws are still lagging on this issue, and in this country.
It's hard to not talk about refugees when we talk about human rights, especially here in Greece. How is your situation working with refugees? What are some of the challenges that refugee, especially LGBTQI, face here in Greece?
There is a paradox in Greece. You would see the public discussion and you compare it to the same discussion in the other European countries. Mind you, other European countries are taking in refugees in millions. Everybody from all sorts of countries around the world want to come to Europe. Canada, Australia, the States, Europe. So most European countries have a lot of refugees and migrants. And they need them in order to be able to sustain the level of their life, the quality, industry, labor, insurance, pensions, what have you. Greece is a very particular example. We don't have that many refugees and migrants. We go with the theory, we don't want, you know, what is assimilation, what is whatever. They bring in the moralities, the differences, what have you, the race. But here there is a problem of underpopulation. Greece has a brain drain. A lot of people, because of the easiness of the European Union, go to other places. You take a plane, a car, you walk and you go. That's the difference that people around the world don't realize, that we live in this whole Europe and we can more or less travel easily with intervals. So Greece needs migrants and refugees and is not ready to absorb them. It's a paradox. It's a drama, if I may say, because there's no progression, there is no market if there's no working people to buy and sell, to pay taxes, pensions, securities, insurances, and that's the problem now. We go with a racist discussion. We don't want them, and we need them. I remember myself, because see, I work as a journalist. I had my own show decades ago, and everything is on television. And I was staying with Moavi Ahmed, which is the chair of the Forum Migrant. Nowadays, 20 years ago, we will beg them to come. Now, you see agriculture in this country. The fruits are up on trees, and there is no one to collect them. And now, because we don't like people who come, naturally, like Afghans, Syrians, Pakistanis, now we go to, supposedly the government goes to India, Vietnam, and Egypt, because there's other races or whatever, more
the government?
Likely, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Which is stupid. I mean, it doesn't work like this. There's millions of people coming by, and we don't ask them whether they want to live here. We don't recognize talents. We don't train them. It's a pity.
I will ask you a quick question. If you
It's
could just
difficult for people to get the nationality. They make it more difficult even. It's sad. There's people who
and
are
why
here
do you
for
think is
30
this?
years and they're still not legally with papers and everything else.
Why do you think this exists?
It's a mixture of nationalism, religious dogma, and lack of understanding economy.
Thank you very much. At this point, I will show you some images, and I would like to have your immediate response.
Okay.
The first picture is this one. There was a protest after the sex marriage was legalized in Greece. What do you think about this image?
Well, I'm not sure. This is the same of. Okay. I guess this is people who want it all. There's people who state that this is not enough. This is not enough. That they have something to say on the goodwill, not a goodwill, it's an obligation of Mitsotakis, the Prime Minister. They accuse Kasselakis, which is the leader of the opposition, of not being an average queer person, but he is a privileged, cis, gay, white stuff. I love these people. These are people who want a revolution. Now, where they start is good. Some realism, a lot of enthusiasm, and struggle in front of them is the answer. But my reaction is that, yes, they're radicals, yes, I'm with them.
I see.
It's never enough.
The other image that I would like to show you is the day that the same-sex marriage was legalized in Greece, and I see you kissing.
Yes, this is inside the parliament. It was a huge row. It was very funny because they say this was again I should be arrested because there's guards everywhere. Even in the back you can see guards. But the letter of the law of the regulation of the parliament is that what is against is posters and screams, not kisses. It was not foreseen, so I was okay. It is so sweet. I mean, you see, I have a famous kiss 20 years earlier with a partner of mine, which was the first kiss on a Greek magazine of two people being together and kissing. It's not a model. And that was the second one. I think it was very touching.
And this
is me with a doll of my sister's. Mark was the name of it. And this I'm wearing the scooter helmet of my uncle. Little Gregory, with clothes that they were fabricated for us, That's in Plaka. That's very close here.
Amazing. And the last image that I would like to show you is a parade of walk of Greek young students that they are walking
the 25th of March.
for the Independence Day.
I'm wondering, my microphone. I'm wondering whether there is people of other origins. I don't see, because obviously they're black, they're yellow, there's everyone. I am against these demonstrations, especially the military ones, and the very ordered ones with the same uniforms and stuff. I find professionals who do marching and majorette delightful. I'm not for this myself. I don't believe that it helps on any morality or any central idea. It is taking away of the overall humanitarian approach of things. This is things that divide us, that don't unite us.
Good. At the last segment of the podcast, as we are going to end our podcast, unfortunately, I have a few questions, and I would appreciate if you could answer them as brief as you could.
Mm-hmm.
What has been the biggest injustice against you, in your opinion?
Biggest
injustice against
injustice
you, in your opinion?
I guess I am a victim, very reasonably so, of various stigmas. I wasn't able to present myself higher in the hierarchy of private businesses. I was stopped from being candidate for politics, not officially, but I knew that it wouldn't be there. I have changed my life program and my business, my everyday work, according to the stigma that wanted me so and not so. I give you an example.
Yes.
I was a candidate for mayor of Athens 20 years ago. Not 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Obviously, I was known for discussing about minorities, and I was always there with my own show, with awards and everything else. For 70 days, there were 5 candidates. I was never invited to discuss about financial situation, external policies, social policies. I was only invited for social, mind you, gays, lesbians, AIDS, this and that. This is racism. Now, I conditioned my life according to what I could, kicking for more. I know of it. I know that it is part of the success, but there is a price.
What does identity mean to you, and how do you identify yourself?
You mean sexual identity or in general?
It could be anything.
Okay. Identity is what you want to portray other than what goes by itself. If you're a black person, you cannot portray a white person. So identity is the things that you add to your appearance. Now, I am a citizen of the world. I'm an atheist. I'm a man. But I believe that sexes are as many as individuals. I think this is grand. It is generous. But it is only there for human beings to be able to live their life in full. Because what I think full is not full for you. And what I feel full may be foolish for you.
What would be the 3 things that you would have changed if you were in the position of authorities, either being prime minister or being a member of parliament in Greece?
As far as human rights, you mean?
Yeah, yes, that could be.
Well, I would certainly render the possibility of getting citizenship and rights much easier. People who want to be part of our society are part of our society with the education necessary. I think that's the one. Women's issue, and if you want, femininity issue, because it is men suffer from all these notions of how straight or how manly they are. This sexual behavior should be regulated in terms of deregulated. There is no a must in the way that you should walk, speak, have your characteristics, have your identity, have your expression. And then I would like to societies to be able to make sure that people have something to eat, have the health, and they have a voice. 3, but big ones.
What does human rights mean to you?
Freedom of expression, dignity of yourself, understanding of the variety of the people around you.
Is someone born homosexual, or they become one by being exposed to ideologies and contents?
Born.
How do you, as a journalist, how do you see the role of media in advocating human rights, or even this podcast?
You mean in this country or elsewhere?
In general.
In this country, the news is bad because there is no education to journalists. They don't try to sensitize themselves with the changes and the delicacies of the way of expressing in the right way, in a concrete way, in a proud way. I think that there is a lot to be done in journalism. We should be, and this partly is due to our part. We should be more extrovert and more ready to understand and train and educate right before we're very critical and very up against. We should be up against once we have exhausted the means of understanding each other.
Mr. Gregory Vallianatos, thank you so much for being here, for your time, and I really appreciate for your inputs, your wisdom, and your experiences and your personal experiences that you shared with us and with our audience. Thank you, everyone.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And spray your wings to embrace everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.